Good day, brothers and sisters, and welcome to the World War III review. Well, it's not World War III yet, and we're hoping it's not. We're not here to push it. We're actually here for peace at Alex Sass Show, and Glenn Herring will attest to that in a second. But if you don't know which side of the conflict to take, because if you are here in the Western democracy like United States, Canada, or anywhere in Europe, you have a lot of conflicting feelings. You know, people protesting against Israel. They are pro-Palestine, and, they are sick and tired of Palestinian suffering. And then, the policies of the age have been pushing the Israel agenda throughout the Western world as well. So if you don't know which side to take here, don't worry. We got a solution for you. Glenn, have you followed Greta Thunberg recently? And if you didn't, you should, because, veteran climate warrior Greta Thunberg announced Friday she has shifted her attention away from the world's weather to focus on Israel's fate as it fights Hamas and its associated terrorist organizations. Basically, she went into support of Israel and not Israel, Palestine and Gaza. So, Glenn, I don't know how she is so young and she's so versatile.
What a multi-talented individual.
She
fights climate change as a teenager, and now she's trying to expose the so-called truths going on in the Middle East. Now she's a regional politician. She works for the media. Wow, this girl is just on her game, whatever that game is.
Well, you're absolutely right. She is an expert, and we're here to help you to discern because, and discover for yourself. We're not here to make your mind up for you, making it for yourself, but we're just going to present information that is available to you out there in this ether, for things like internet and whatever search engine you use, you can still find this information. Or if you're on like socials, like Telegram, there's plenty of that information out there. But for some reason, that got shoved under the carpet really quick. Glenn, you saw this article. It's the Israel apparently knew of Hamas attack in advance. And that comes not from Alex Sass Show in conspiratorial mind of Glenn Herring. He's not. I'm the conspiratorial mind here. But Representative Michael McCaul backed up earlier claims that Egypt tipped officials off to an impending assault 3 days before. And somehow we don't talk about it. Well, because it's scary. First of all, we have examples of that in the history. Pearl Harbor, that's one of them. 9/11 is the other one. It's a whole different story. Again, like if we're going to do a subject on false flags, and it'll be a never-ending show.
Moon landing.
Moon landing. But specifically, if we focus on this conflict, this conspiracy isn't coming from, a junior senator or, talk show host Alex Sass. It comes from Michael McCaul, the pretty serious U.S. representative. And he claims, I don't want to get too much into classified, but a warning was given. I think the question was, at what level? So, and in the previous episode, part 1 of Israeli conflict that we covered, we actually, I think it was coming from one of the legacy medias like CNN or MSNBC. They talked about it, the fact that U.S. is stepping up with intelligence sharing to help Israel as if they knew some things that Israel didn't, which I doubt. But this all amounts to different things. Like if that's a issue that we're discussing here, and if it is a false flag, what's it all about? I mean, if we're going to tie it back in to the globalist and military industrial complex and, the Black Rocks and State Streets and vanguards of the world, it all comes back to money. And it's the war that's waged. And, okay, so going back to my original premise, whose side do you pick? Do you pick Israelis or do you pick Palestinians?
You pick the side of the truth, and you have to discern through all this fanfare what's going on. There's a reason why the majority of the people of Israel want to get rid of Benjamin Netanyahu. Obviously, that man is a warmonger too, and he's working for the global elites because there's a few people who make a lot of money during times of conflict. So these conflicts are engineered from at higher levels, obviously, because if you talk to the average person in any country, they don't want any conflict. They want peace. They want harmony. They just want to go on with their lives. So that's the majority of the people in the world who think like that, obviously. And then you have the string pullers, and they have people it's been engineered into the governments that the people who so-called were voted in do not work for the people of their country. They work for the globalists to create all this, whether it be wars in Ukraine, war in the Middle East, which also might get a little bit out of control, mind you. They would like to have it get out of control because the world economy is collapsing. The US dollar, the hegemony monetary system of the world, is collapsing, and the central bank of the world, they want something to blame it on. So why not put that spark into the powder keg, into the gunpowder right now in the Middle East, and then we can blame the fall of the existing empires in the world on some other nefarious reason other than the truth. This is all engineered.
It's also how do you kill two birds with one stone, right, Glenn? So like you still need to somehow keep the government alive before it collapses, because you got to pay salaries to all your cronies. So Biden actually asked for $100 billion from Congress on Friday for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. So they're not just brewing conflicts; they also are printing money, is what you're saying, right? I haven't heard much about Ukraine other than the failed counteroffensive and numerous deaths of Ukrainian soldiers. Sacrifice.
Yeah, the truth, right, champ? The truth has been kept out of the media. And apparently, Ukraine is being hammered. They were being hammered. Soldiers were dying left, right, all over the place. It's not even close. But that is kept out of the media. Because the MSM, the legacy media, the mainstream media, their job today is to sugarcoat, spin, and hide the truth of what is actually happening. Because they want this to go on. They want people to take sides according to false beliefs or perception narratives that they're controlling. So if you're taking sides, means now you're that diversity, you're splitting up. And by splitting up, divisions created in every other country, pro-Hamas or pro-Palestine, pro-Israel, pro the Jewish, if you do that, then you're going to cause civil discourse in the other countries, just as the economy is getting more and more difficult and people are being pressured and stressed and they don't know where it's coming from. They're looking for something to vent, to blame it on. And this is what's transpiring right now.
Well, and again, we've been told by many talking heads here in Canada, United States, and Europe specifically, the Western world, that I don't actually understand why New Zealand and Australia are part of the Western world. They're so far down in
Commonwealth.
Okay, well that makes sense. But we know Ukraine is corrupt, and there's no democratic value there in general. And again, they prove themselves wrong or right, or proved us right in this case, because Ukrainian parliament recently advanced the bill to ban the Ukrainian Orthodox Church over alleged ties to Moscow. So, no freedom of religion based on some, on that matter, Catholic Church tied to everything in the world, right? But again, why isn't Catholic Church banned from most jurisdictions? But that's not the conversation we want to have here. The conversation we want to have here, there's what we are told to feel emotional about a conflict and what the conflict is all about are two different things. And that's why you're tuning into the show, to receive information and to discern for yourself. Again, we're not here to tell you to hate Ukrainians or the Western world or the Commonwealth. No, we're all brothers and sisters here. But you have to understand where the evil is coming from and who runs the evil in this world. Also, I'm going to call it here today, brothers and sisters. Jan Igor, who was on our show last week, and it was if you haven't seen it, I'll put a link in the description below. It was a very emotional show. He's an Israeli friend, and he was subjected to bombings. His father actually got injured in one of the rocket exploding near his house, and we feel, we felt his emotional plight for conflict resolution in this case. Although even through his emotion, he said, we're going to do everything that's necessary, including making a parking lot out of Palestine. I mean, out of Gaza Strip and Palestine, because, they killed so many of our Israelis, and we compared it to 9/11 attack, etc., etc. Now, I'm going to call it here, Glenn. I know one of the things that Yanai brought it up is now it puts stringent, it affected the relationship of Israel with Saudi Arabia, or it put it under threat because, throughout ages, they weren't really peaceful. And recently, in the last year or two, Netanyahu made some progress. And in July, I think in May, on May 7th, and then he had a presentation sometime in June or July, where he announced that there will be a railroad connecting Israel and Saudi Arabia, and that would be economic solution. Actually, they compared it to the Silk Road, except it wouldn't be coming from China. And Glenn, this is what you're talking about all the time. The most powerful economy that's emerging in the next decade is India. Right now, they're building enormous amount of tech microchip factories there, which is important, especially with all the AI technology coming in.
Eating China's lunch.
China's lunch, because they're moving it from Taiwan, because Taiwan is now, questionable. They were the biggest producers of all this microchip technology, so they're now moving it to India. India is the biggest consumer of Russian oil, India is building factories left and right of all kinds of automotive, high-tech technology, everything needed. So it's actually basically to replace in China. And the deal that was worked out between Netanyahu, Saudi Arabia, and India is to actually ship the goods to Saudi Arabia ports, put them on the trains, and ship them to the Israel, put them on the ports there, and that would be the gate to the West. And he had a really nice presentation somewhere where he actually drew it with a marker, the direct road, the Silk Road, the new Silk Road that I was talking about. Now, Glenn, forgive me if I'm wrong. Israel was talking about building seaports to accomplish that thing. And we know that the Gaza is located
at the ideal place where they want to expand, obviously. So that was one of the reasons why to want to allow, first of all, Gaza, a part of Palestine, there is a militant organization in there called the Hamas. Hamas doesn't speak for all Palestinians. Just like there's a lot of people in Israel who were against the Zionist troublemakers. You have the Orthodox Jews do not like the Zionist Jews. Okay, so there's a definite difference there. Now, so within each country, there are honest people just want to live a good life. They don't want to be fighting with their neighbors. But no, the people who run those countries say, no, we run things. You voted for us and we run things. And that voting for us thing, you have to realize after watching what happened in America in 2020, in many countries around the world, a lot of this so-called democracy is not as really as democratic as people think. And a lot of the results are engineered through the media machine just to control your perception that you have a democracy and that your vote really counted. Really?
Well, Glenn, if information that we just brought up here at the show makes a lot of sense with the false flag operation, right? for the Israel to actually Israel right now is preparing a ground offensive attack, and one of the reasons we see Joe Biden coming into the picture. He flew into the region, and not just him. What's the Prime Minister of UK? What's his name?
Rishi Sunak.
Rishi Sunak came to Israel. They had a powwow, and Israel has been ready to go. And they actually officially announced that the ground offensive is happening. So they're not the first attack. The first step is to bomb the crap out of Palestine, and then clean it up with the tanks.
Yeah, and tell all the people in Palestine you have to leave. You have to go south towards Rafah, the border with Egypt. And Egypt doesn't really want to open their borders, neither does Jordan, because they want the people to stay on their land. That is Palestinian land. If you vacate the land out of fear, obviously, because you want to stay alive, then the occupiers are going to come in and occupy that land. And they're going to do it on the premise or the false belief that, well, we have to do it to protect the motherland Israel. And there's a lot of people from Israel who are not for that either. They see what's going on. They see the bigger picture, and they're not affected by the propaganda machine.
Well, again, we brought it up on the show earlier, and even Yana said it. You know, he's like, well, you want to entertain a conspiracy? Iran received $6 billion of taxpayer money, of U.S. taxpayer money for, was it the prisoner hostage exchange or something?
So we're led to believe, if you believe everything that they tell you.
Yeah, that was the official statement. So now, apparently, they're giving Palestine another $100 million for humanitarian reasons, right? After this, here's who they giving the money to, right? We talked about it, like Yasser Arafat receiving money for different reasons, and then his wife ended up being a billionaire in European banks. What's happening with this money? The same idea that we talk about and bring it up here all the time. What's happening with your money that go to Ukraine and how it's being laundered? Like we know Mrs. Zelensky, whatever her name is, went shopping and spent $1 million at Cartier in New York, right? So it has nothing to do with your money. He earned that money as an actor. Right?
And Gaddafi's money, Muammar Gaddafi's money, being found in Canadian banks. It's funny, you know. Banks are not supposed to be into the laundering business, but when it comes to billions of dollars, they'll find a way to get in there. They'll validate it.
I don't watch CNN. Do you, Glenn?
The Criminal News Network, the Clown News Network. No, I don't. Well, you know what? You watch it just to help you discern.
But also you want to see where the things are, right? Because that's sort of like a compass. Like it doesn't matter which network you're working. You see where they're trying to persuade your opinion of things that's happening, or where their head is, and how it reflects on you. So recently they actually asked this question: how do you know that the money we're sending to Palestine are going for the right causes? You wouldn't believe they actually question it. Let's watch this. It's a short clip.
The president pledged $100 million in an aid package to Palestinian civilians, innocent civilians in Gaza and the West Bank. How is the United States going to ensure that none of that ends up in the hands of Hamas?
Well, as you know, this was a primary focus of the president's diplomacy yesterday, both in Israel, where he met with the entire Israeli security establishment, but also in his phone conversations with regional leaders, including President al-Sisi of Egypt. Getting assistance into Gaza is a complicated undertaking. It involves essentially securing an understanding among Hamas fighters who control the checkpoint on the other side of the border, among the government of Israel and among the government of Egypt. And the agreement the president secured will enable these trucks to flow as soon as the roadway can be repaired. But the president was also quite clear that if this assistance goes in, it cannot be misappropriated, cannot be taken by Hamas fighters for their own purpose.
How does he say that? He weighs the things like, make sure the money that I send you go to the right sources, and if they don't, you'll do what? You'll bomb more of the crap out of that?
Yeah, just like some of the weapons that Hamas is using are from America. You see, they were given to Ukraine, and then the leaders in Ukraine make money off selling weapons to other countries. So, of course, the biggest, the one with the most money who's going to buy them. And this is how the elites make money off of. And we paying for that here in the West. They take the taxes from us to make the weapons, give the weapons to other countries, and the other countries making the money off of our workload extracted from us in the form of tax dollars. You see the big circle of jerk that's going on, Big Guy?
Yeah, create a conflict and then come up with a solution for the conflict,
You
right?
know, here there was a guy in Canada. He's a nephrologist. That's a doctor for the kidneys, right? That's what they specialize in. Now, he got put on 1 month's probation, a suspension from work for saying this, trying to expose the mainstream legacy media. Okay? No babies were beheaded. There have been no confirmed reports of rapes. You repeat this nonsense out of racism. In the meantime, Palestinians are experiencing genocide and war crimes, and you were silent. History will judge you very badly. The reason why he says history is because in the end, the truth comes out.
And we hope truth comes out. I mean, but the winners often rewrite history, right? Or hide history for that matter. But I'm interested in hearing what CNN anchor had to actually. Do you think she will question that talking mouth from the White House regarding the 100 million? And you'll be surprised. Let's just finish this.
Purposes, and so we're going to be watching that very closely. It has to get to Palestinian civilians who need it.
It has to. But the question is, from what you just said, is the U.S. then essentially in a position where it has to take the word of Hamas that it will not be taken? I mean, what other guarantee can there be?
We believe there is an understanding now among all of the players who control that crossing, the Rafah crossing in Egypt.
Glenn, there's an understanding between you and me that this is bullcrap. Let's just send them 100 million and we'll rely on Hamas to redistribute money exactly. Even though Hamas has nothing to do with Palestine, we heard it many times. It's a terrorist organization, doesn't represent the interests of everyday Palestinians. It represents interest of Iran. Even though we know Hamas is the Israeli-created entity to combat PLO, right? To be in conflict with PLO, right? So we know it's a artificially created entity, and they tell you how they finance it. They gave it $6 billion, then they're sending $100 million more, and they end up with the weapons from Ukraine and all this other stuff. And we somehow here has to buy it like, oh, it's just, Abraham faiths fighting against each other, brother against brother. They've been doing it for years and years, and it has nothing to do with us fueling the conflict. What's going on with?
And just to give you another example, the ex-leader of the NDP party in Canada, Thomas Mulcair, who's now a pundit for the mainstream media Muppets, he comes out saying Canada should be doing more to aid in the humanitarian crisis created by Israel-Hamas war. It was created by the global elites. Okay, that's who created it. And when it comes to humanitarian aid, where's Canada's going to get this humanitarian aid when there's a humanitarian crisis in Canada? It's been unfolding for a couple of years now about the number of homeless people in every city. People who are hooked on drugs and fentanyl, where you have abnormally high, they call it a suicide rate. 50%, up to half of all new people who are now homeless are elderly people. So we have a humanitarian crisis unfolding here in Canada. But no, let's not look at Canada. No. These are Canadian taxpayers. It's got to go around the world to help all the people that the globalists are harming.
Well, and also, okay, I'll stay with you on that subject. The Hamas is Israeli-created, Mossad, CIA, whatever you want to call it. I don't know the true origin of that, Zionist, yeah. So they have that there, and it's not the first time they did it. So now Hamas is, and it's today's Friday, brothers and sisters, don't be scared. This is just more fear-mongering from the legacy media, I believe. But Hamas leaders urge worldwide mobilization on Friday. Whatever that means. Do they mean protest? Do they mean for people to go and start terrorizing, the peaceful people around the world or not? I don't know what that means. But if Hamas was created by Israel and now they're a terrorist organization, doesn't that make Israel a terrorist organization by default?
Well, define a terrorist organization, and if you look at the definition, you'll see the perpetrators of the American government, because they're working for the globalists. The United States of America military machine are the biggest terrorists in the world. Now, this Palestinian war with Israel, obviously, they call it a militant group, but these are highly trained soldiers called Hezbollah in Lebanon from the north. They're just itching to get involved in this. Now Israel will be fighting a war on two fronts. But now, with Lebanon getting in, you know that Iran is going to jump in too. So now it's three fronts. And you have American soldiers in bases in Iraq and Syria, where they are starting to become the targets too from those governments or the militant groups within those countries. So it just seems to be expanding. Hence, that is the reason why you saw one aircraft carrier and all its offensive military might move into the region. That's the Gerald Ford. That's the biggest aircraft carrier and the most advanced in the world. And now you have a second one over there. So it looks like this is being engineered to get quite a lot larger than what we're led to believe. We're hoping that it doesn't, but that could be a little bit of too much hopium at this level in the game. It seems like it just started. It's been 2 weeks, but I could tell you this has been planned a lot longer ago than this.
100%. And here I'll expand on that. So the conversation that the Biden had, address that he had in Israel, and how he mentioned Ukraine, and now van der Leyen, you know who van der Leyen is, brothers and sisters. She's the European unelected representative for the people of Europe. Somehow she makes those decisions. She actually also compared Russia to Hamas. Let's listen to her for 2 seconds.
Vladimir Putin wants to wipe Ukraine from the map. Hamas, supported by Iran, wants to wipe Israel from the map. Russia and Hamas are alike. As President Zelensky has said, their essence is the same.
Of course, Russia was created as a
boogeyman,
a terrorist organization by Israel, right? So that's
Putin's fault.
Yeah, it's Putin's fault, and Russia wants to wipe Ukraine. If Trump. Russia wanted to wipe Ukraine, brothers and sisters, that would have already happened. That's my statement here. It's my claim. It's like, oh, Russia has the weak army, and look how they're failing, and Ukraine is stopping them. No, Russia is not advancing. That's the difference. But the Russia and Ukraine, that's a whole different conversation here. Like, my belief, it's also artificially generated, and the Russia, if they want to wipe out Ukraine, would have done it a long time ago. But it's not, because it's trying to achieve other agendas. Whatever those agendas are, we can discuss it on other shows, and you probably watched it where we discuss it at length. But if you're comparing Russia to Hamas organization, how Russia wants to wipe out, Ukraine. Look at the map. Glenn, have you ever seen this map? The white dots in 1946, part of this sketch. That's the Israeli settlements.
Looks a little sketchy, to me.
But then you go to 2012, not even 2024 or 2023. Sorry, I'm a year ahead. It's totally reversed. There's no Palestinian land left compared to what it used to be, right? So that begs the question, van der Leyen, how can you're obviously comparing evil to evil, where you're portraying Russia as well. I would say, Hamas is like any other NATO war-sponsored conflict.
Yeah, another globalist puppet putting out, and putting it out through the press, because the press are being paid for that. That's why we call them prostitutes here on the show. But you had another representative of the globalists called Antonio Guterres. He's the chief of they call it the United Nations, but today it's starting to look like the disunited, ununited nations. He shows up over there in Rafah at the crossing, and you think he was going for a GQ magazine photo shoot or something. He's got a suit on, the sunglasses, like Captain so-and-so coming to save the people over there. It's ridiculous. It's all just show and tell. Don't look this way, fake that. And it comes out one after the other to keep everybody in the fog.
Well, again, I'm going to stick to this thing. Like, this is much larger than Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We can take Saudi Arabia, the New Silk Road from India, for Palestine, but somehow Biden keeps bringing Ukraine back, and they brought in two biggest, aircraft carriers that U.S. Army has now into Mediterranean, which is way close to the Russian borders than Russia like to have, and Russia now has the supersonic jets, the fastest ones that they have, patrolling the Black Sea with Kinjals. Kinjal is the hypersonic missile that's capable of actually destroying the aircraft carrier. So, again, is it more fear mongering? Actually, Putin came out and said, "Look, we have this capability, and we're not afraid to use it." He came out like, "You warships here for whatever reason." And yes, U.S. warships have been shooting down missiles and drones near Israel, according to Pentagon claim. That is the news that we're receiving here. And Glenn, you're saying that they also, the army bases in Iraq have been under attack for a while now, for a few months that I'm aware of, right? They've been testing the waters, I think, to see. In Syria as well, right? And Syria has been under attack. The graduation has been, the military graduation recently has been bombarded. And they don't say who did it. They just say like the bombs fall out of the sky, like the rain does, and nobody sends it. It's the same idea as like Jasleen, right? Sex trafficked girls, and she's serving time for it. But who did she sex traffic girls
Elaine
to?
Maxwell, yeah.
Yeah. So the same idea. Also, on the same note, NATO envoys hold emergency meeting over Putin-Orban talk. So there's some sort of resistance happening, in the sense that the new world order is collapsing, and
there's a new world order arising in town, and this is what we talked about on the show quite a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's materializing, and so the globalists seem to be losing their power, but they're not going to give up without a fight, and this fight could be in the Middle East. Because let's face it, the globalists are the ones who are really controlling a lot of the climate catastrophes that are going on. Oh, you can believe that it's the too many cars with their gas. You could believe in too high carbon levels if you want. You can believe that a lot of the earthquakes that are caused is just normal. From the creations underneath, they're moving a little bit. Yeah, that happens. Yeah, but it doesn't happen this many times in some of the same places that are going on, like in Afghanistan, for example.
Well, Glenn, now you venturing into conspiracy.
Yeah, one
theory.
after the other.
But okay, so I mentioned a few minutes ago, that Hamas asked to mobilize people. So I don't know if all those protests that we showed on a previous show as the mobilization, but apparently if you take a position of like, okay, I want peace, or you're supporting Palestine for some reason, you are being compared to a terrorist and you're being treated like one. I have this video from Netherlands, and you, brothers and sisters, you can watch it. There's a flag, and there's a young couple. And I'll play this video from the beginning again. There's a bunch of police in riot uniform with sticks just kicking this guy. I mean, I have some security training. I know for a fact the first thing that they're taught is to de-escalate. Glenn, that doesn't look like de-escalating. It looks like they just, and there's a lot of them. And this guy by himself, and they just hitting them. What is this? How can you explain this?
Well, they're trying to goad him into fighting back, and so he has to take the whacks. But he seems to be a pretty resilient fellow. It looks like that if they were to put their badges down and just go as a regular person, it looks like the fellow that they're trying to goad into problems, if he was allowed to, it looks like he could take care of himself, because it's horrible to watch something like this. Yeah. Let's see how tough you are if you're only one. Put your badge down and let's see how tough you are.
Oh, now they're swinging a stick at the woman. On top of that, you see that?
Yeah.
That's brothers and sisters, Netherlands, by the way, where, I don't know. In Europe, man has been long time gone. And by the way, the man will call the police. We had this discussion with Susan Ham in one of our shows, where I proclaimed that women are definitely a second-class citizens. Yes, brothers and sisters, call in and leave messages. You know why I say that? I would, if you put me in the ring with women any size, well, I would say maybe there is a woman out there that may be super martial artist that may be able to get my
transgender woman. And that's not a real woman.
That's not a real woman. Let's face it.
It's an imposter. It's a fake.
Glenn, I'm going to ask you this. I mean,
go ahead.
It's just getting off the subject a bit.
Go ahead.
If let's say you have a total green light, ethically, morally, legally, financially, and a woman challenges it, Glenn, I will take you in a fair fight, one-on-one, like whatever it is. Do you think, is there a woman anywhere in your immediate understanding that you could possibly lose to in a fight?
Possibly, if I was already half dead. But listen, champ, the purpose of a man is to live, not merely exist. That's all people want to do, is just to live. But the globalists are making that impossible. So if you spell live backwards, it spells the word evil. And this is what the globalists are. They're taking away every means they can the ability for just the average person to live a nice, non-conflicting life which the Creator wanted. But no, you had the few troublemakers who have so much wealth, but that's not enough. They're greedy and they're gluttons, and they want even more wealth and more control, more power. These are the narcissists of society that have gone into psychopaths. Okay, you went from one extreme and narcissist to the next level is psychopaths, and these are the people at the top. They exhibit those traits of psychopathic mental disorders.
But okay, I know you're a man, and I'm striving to be one, and I know some men as well. But I got a few years. You got a few years on me of practice, so I'll get better. But is this the man? Do you know Josh Paul? Josh Paul was, before he resigned, a U.S. State Department arms transfer chief. And he resigned over the Israel conflict. And that's what he said. I'm just going to read it. Paul said he took the job knowing that it entailed moral complexity and moral compromises, which you talk about all the time, and strived to make sure that the harm I might do could be overweighted by the good I could do. I believe that in our current course with regards to the continued, indeed expanded and expedited provision of lethal arms to Israel, I have reached the end of the bargain. He explained his decision. Washington was repeating the same mistake that it made for decades, he wrote. The policy is an impulsive reaction built on confirmation bias, political convenience, intellectual bankruptcy, and bureaucratic inertia. What he's saying is, I had a first-hand experience watching the money and the arms going to the wrong hands for the wrong reasons.
No, he's just switching allegiance. First of all, for him to get that position, he was working as a muppet for the bad global elites. And this is the reason why he was able to hold that position for 11 years. But he knows what's going on in the world, and he says to save his own little arse, that's what he's doing. He's now coming out to say that, no, I don't want to do this. This is morally incorrect. You know, in other words, he wants to go to the other side because the other side seems to be winning now.
So what is the Saudi prince said yesterday when he condemned the conflict? I have this video, Glenn. We'll watch it for the first minute and then we'll comment on that.
All militarily occupied people have a right to resist their occupation, even militarily. I do not support the military option in Palestine. I prefer the other option, civil insurrection and disobedience.
That makes me believe that my original statement, what he just said, he says to Palestinians, put your arms down and just be Gandhi, right? You know, that's what he finishes. So that makes me believe that he's still somehow in cahoots with Israel.
It brought down the British Empire in India and the Soviet Empire in Eastern Europe. Israel has overwhelming military superiority, and we see in front of our eyes the devastation and oblivion it is bringing to the people of Gaza. I categorically condemn Hamas's targeting of civilian targets of any age or gender, as it is accused of. Such targeting belies Hamas's claims to an Islamic identity. There is an Islamic injunction against the killing of innocent children, women, and elders. The injunction is also against the desecration of places of worship. I also condemn Hamas's gifting the higher moral ground to an Israeli government that is universally shunned, even by half of the Israeli public, as fascist, miscreant, and abhorrent. I condemn Hamas for giving this awful government the excuse to ethnically cleanse Gaza of its citizens and bombing them to oblivion. I condemn Hamas to further undermining the Palestinian Authority, as Israel has been doing. I condemn Hamas for sabotaging the attempt of Saudi Arabia to reach a peaceful resolution to the plight of the Palestinian people. But equally, I condemn Israel's indiscriminate bombing of Palestinian innocent civilians in Gaza and the attempt to...
So he started with Palestinians condemning the Hamas, and then somehow he mentioned...
Then he came back to the middle. He seems to be a proponent for the truth. He seems to be putting it out in a right type of language that most of this won't go to the mainstream media. Of course not. He's trying to show the truth to the world so that people will be able to discern and to be less likely to choose sides and be on the side of humanity.
So what are we discerning here today, Glenn? Like, obviously we're taking the side of the people, right? We're not here to tell you it's Palestinians or Israelis, because as we interview Yanai, and you can feel the pain in his heart. I mean, this is not the man who wants war. He lives right now under the rockets. We don't here in the West. We're not experiencing that. In people that here are pro-war, then pick a gun, go to Palestine, go to Israel, fight that war, go to Ukraine, go to Russia, whichever side you take. If you're really supporting the war that way, right, Glenn?
Yeah, exactly. If you're so if you lose logic because you're consumed by emotion, then go over there and do what you emotionally think is reasonable or unreasonable. That's your business. One thing I do notice where I seeing here in Canada is there are protests, yes, for this side or for that side, but I have to say that at least the protests have not gotten out of control. They're calm. They're not violent.
Like
protests.
BLM protests, for example.
Well, that's crap. But this, if you have something to say and it makes you feel better and you want to support a side because you believe and you do it peacefully, hey, that's okay. That's your right to protest peacefully. That's okay.
Well, and again, well, it's probably not going to, not probably, it's definitely not going to be over tomorrow. And we see people rising up on both sides of the conflict in countries as well. And New Delhi is to continue, which is New Delhi is India, is continues to humanitarian aid to Palestine. India has donated nearly 30 million to war-torn Palestine in just over 2 decades, but now it continues to do its share to help the people. And then even Instagram, even Instagram stood up. Instagram apologizes for branding Palestinian as terrorists. And that seems to be like, that's the propaganda and brainwashing that we are familiar with when somebody calls somebody a terrorist. Remember, like, brothers and sisters, well, I don't know if you do, but when 9/11 happened, then they compared everybody to terrorists, anybody of Muslim nature, and, you know, anybody from Middle East, Iraqi, even like Bush, remember, it's like, he would continuously make mistakes between Sunni Muslims and Shiite Muslims, and comparing Iraq to Iran, even though, you know, his father had the whole war set up previously. So be careful of what you receive as information from the legacy sources, and also, you know, take with a grain of salt what we're telling you about. I mean, sometimes we're misled as well, because where do we receive information? We receive information from many sources, and we're trying to discern and draw a picture for you what we think is happening, based on our experience, based on our perception of the world. And this is where we're at today with Palestinian-Israeli conflict. We'll have more shows. We'll have more interviews regarding this. It's probably going to be an ongoing thing. And we're not happy about this because people are suffering. And it affects all of us, brothers and sisters, because that's our family out there as well. Glenn, any closing words?
The longer this lasts, the worse for the world economy. If Iran jumps into it, then you're going to have problems in the Strait of Hormuz, which is going to have a supply shock for the energy, oil. And then you're going to have increased inflation, while the banks, central banks, are trying to fight that through increasing the interest rate, which is crushing the economies. So this was the stagflation that we were warning about. You have a stagnant economy with continued inflation. That is the worst predicament to be in as a person in a country. Good luck. I'm going to need it.
Well, did you see the oil closed at $93 yesterday? And it's probably going to continue to climb.
Oh, yeah, going over, well over $100. Don't be surprised if you see oil at $150 a barrel. And that is really going to be difficult for people because the supply chains, the food, all the prices of everything are going to go up. And they're going to go up, of course, in devalued currency. Maybe the governments, what they're going to do is double up or double down on this, create more currency to try and float things, which will even devalue the currency even more. Personally, the G-Man thinks that is the goal, is to hyperinflate the currencies into a reset.
Also, they're going to use it, brothers and sisters, 100% they're going to use this to their advantage, and they're going to tell you you should drive an electric car because it's cheaper. And why they going to want you to drive an electric car? Because if they control the electricity, which they do, they control you. Because how easy it is for them to turn it off. How easy it is for them to turn off the internet. How easy it is for them to turn off your plug-in for your car. So on this note, brothers and sisters, continue to discern, continue to stay peaceful. It's hard. I know emotions running high in, whichever side of the conflict you find yourself on, Israel, Palestinian, Russian, Ukrainian, and many other ones. Trying to find center, trying to find balance, and trying to resolve those conflicts within you first before you address those conflicts externally. On this note, brothers and sisters, it's been a great show. We thank Glenn Herring, and thank you for tuning in to Alex Sass Show here at the Glenn Zone, and we'll see you on the next one.